Hello and welcome to our webinar entitled Remote Project Delivery Using Office 365, Microsoft Teams, and Project Online, and some other things as well. We're happy that you're joining us today. My name is David Kruglov. I'm the Director of Project Delivery, amongst other things, here at ShareSquared, and I'm joined by Jim Duncan, who is our Chief Architect, and he's a SharePoint Certified Master, one of, I believe, 24 in the US outside of Microsoft itself. So he's been working with the product for about 20 years, SharePoint and now Office 365, and he'll be doing all of the demos. We're not going to do a ton of slides. I'm going to cover a few things at the beginning, and I think it's about 45 minutes of time will be spent on demonstrations and stuff. So I hope that's what you came to see. We're excited to jump in, but before we do that, we're going to kick off a process. Jim is going to kick off a process that's going to build out some portal structures while we're presenting, and then we're going to come back around and show what it built and explain kind of the technology behind it and the technology behind what was built and why it's important and interesting. So he's just kicked that off. It's kind of the baking show analogy. You know, we're going to show you that finished cake at the end. So Jim, do you have anything to add to that, or shall we just continue with the presentation?
No, I think we can just continue. So I'm basically building out our a copy of our demo environment for what we're using today. So it'll be interesting to see at the end all of that stuff that got built for us.
Beautiful. All right, let's go back to the presentation. All right, so our agenda for today, we like to start meetings with an intention, and we think that's kind of a good practice in general, but specifically when you're doing remote meetings, it's useful to get people on the same page. And sometimes when you're meeting with customers or people you don't know very well, they come to a meeting with a particular listening for what might be said. And so some of you might be listening for a sales pitch, and we're not going to do that. So one of the things we like to do is start our meetings, and again, particularly remote meetings, with an intention so that kind of clears the listening out there, and you get clear on what we're going to actually talk about. We're going to talk about why you would go remote, some of the reasons that we do it, what we do. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the company. There's one slide, but we want to give you the background on why we feel we have a certain level of expertise at remote project delivery. We'll do one slide on some of our customers, and you'll see a long list that you can hardly read, and almost all of those projects have been delivered remotely. And then we'll go into the demonstration piece. Jim will take over. We'll show you the project portals and how we do project management and some productivity technologies, and then we'll wrap up with a recap and some QA. Now, we've been getting great questions on the webinars, and we can't always answer them, before the end of the webinar. We're committed to ending this on time. And so what we did last time, and we'll continue to do, is you'll get a follow-up email that has links to the recorded webinar and the presentation deck as a PDF. And right at the beginning of that is where we'll put the QA. So look for that follow-up email. We're trying to get them out as fast as we can, but it kind of depends on the number of questions we have. So if you ask a lot of questions, you might not see that until Monday. If there's not many, it may be tomorrow or even Friday. So take a look for that. If you don't get it, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information will be at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so the intention for this webinar is to share with you how ShareSquared delivers remote projects, and that's something we've been doing for about 15 years, and certainly wasn't easy 15 years ago. It's gotten very easy now, and with the crisis that's going on currently, it's been very effective. So our projects continue to go forward. In fact, we're busier now than we normally are because we've been doing this, this remote project delivery, and now we've got people working from home or in other workspaces, and they're able to continue to work on our projects, and some of them have more time to focus on them. We also want to teach you about the technologies we use. So this is really more about teaching, learning, you asking questions, that kind of thing, than it is about us. We're not talking about ShareSquared much today, and you'll learn about Office 365 and how we build portals. There are some things, some tools that we use that we built. So you will see those at play, but you'll learn about Microsoft Teams and you'll see how we use it in the context of remote projects and things like that. We want to help you make good decisions about how best to address not only remote project delivery, but if you have other use cases for Office 365 Teams and things like that, we want to kind of help you make good decisions there and move your initiatives along, answer any questions you may have, and overall be of service to you. All right, so we're going to do a quick poll right now. We're going to do 3 of these throughout, and hopefully these are kind of fun and interesting. The first one is, where are you joining the webinar from today? I'm going to start that now, and you should see it. We'll wait a little bit while people vote. Well, so far it's 100% at home, so I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's very interesting. Are we give about 10 more seconds? Oh, there we go. We're getting some other numbers on now. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll. All right, so we had 14% employer workplace and 86% from home. That is not what I expected, but that is very interesting. All right, Jim, let's continue. So why go remote? I mean, some of this may be obvious. There's some links in here, so when we send out the PDF version, you'll be able to click on those. But reduces project logistics, trying to coordinate meetings and things, travel time, expenses, and employee costs. And that link is to an article that I just happened to come across about a week ago that talks about a huge savings from an employee cost standpoint. Whole bunch of points made in that. We're not, we didn't write the article. We're not saying all of it's true. Any of these links you have, we're not experts on, eco-friendliness, but they seemed interesting. There's some interesting links in here that we thought we'd share. Flexibility. So for us, for example, we work with one of our big customers is Los Angeles County, and they have people all over the county in different buildings, right? So there are people down in Downey that run their internal services division, then you got or department, and then you got people in downtown Los Angeles that the CIO's office is there, and I imagine they do a lot of driving to meet. So there's this using Microsoft Teams makes that a lot easier. And for us, we can use the most qualified resources independent of their location. So I'm in Los Angeles, Jim is in San Jose, he's our chief architect, but we can be on a meeting with a customer in Vermont. So we record almost every meeting we do. So that would be scrum calls, discovery sessions, working sessions where we're building out a solution, something we call onboarding, where we're teaching the customer how to continue the work we've done. We record all those and we put them into an Office 365 project portal. You're going to see some of this later. And that's been incredibly effective because customers may have people who couldn't attend the meeting and they're able to go watch the recording and get caught up. They might have to go back for some reason for a training purpose or something like that, or just to check a decision that was made. So that's been really, really great. It's much harder to record an in-person meeting. You could do it, but it's not the same thing. And then eco-friendliness, there's a link there that talks about 2 statistics from about a week ago, obviously related to the crisis, but it's about how clean the air is in certain cities that are in lockdown. So it's not the happiest story, but it is very interesting to see the incredible impact that people not commuting to work has had on the environment. And just ongoingly, if we could do more remote meetings, we would continue to see some impact. This is not a permanent impact, and those articles spell that out, but we certainly make some dent in some of the smog. And then reduces risk. So a lot of times our insurance requirements are lower because we're not coming on site. We're not signing in. There's less security and health concerns and things like that. So it's helpful in that manner when we're working with customers because we're not going to be on site having accidents on their premises. Lastly, the technology is ready, and we hope that at the end of the webinar today, you agree. Next. All right, so just very briefly, you're going to have this slide. You can read about us, but we've been around since 2004. Our focus has been on intranets, electronic forms and workflow, document capture, enterprise content and records management. We've had 13 SharePoint MVPs and 5 certified masters in our history. As I mentioned earlier, Jim is a certified master, and we mostly focus on SharePoint Online, SharePoint On-Prem, Office 365, Azure, things like that. So all the Microsoft technologies, and that's what we're going to share today. And again, we've been delivering projects remotely since inception, and certainly the balance is, the percentage has gone way up over more recent years, but we always set out to do it that way. And now the technology and the culture really supports it. So that's who we are. If you want more information about us, you can certainly ask, but we're not going to spend more time on that now. This is a hard to read list of customers. We just want to give you a sense of Morguard is in the real estate business. Brookfield is in the renewable energy business. Contra Costa Water District was, local government and so forth. So all kinds of customers, all sizes. LA County has somewhere near, 106,000 employees or so, 110,000 at times. And then some of these smaller water districts may have 250 people. So size doesn't matter. And the point of the slide there on the lower right is that these are active, the ones at the top are active projects that are still moving forward despite what's going on with the crisis. And like I said earlier, we're actually getting more progress now than we typically do because people are working from home or more focused, they're not doing their regular job, they can focus on the project. So, the point of this is to say that it doesn't really matter what industry you're in or how large you are, this can be effective for you, and it continues to be effective even with what's going on right now. Jim? Okay, we're going to do another poll. This is the second of 3. And launch this now. And this one is, what Office 365 technologies are you currently using? And select all of the ones that apply here. We're just kind of interested where people are at on the curve here. Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it records the polls, and I'm going to have to go look at that. Right now, we're seeing 76% on Exchange, 79 on SharePoint Online, which is surprisingly high. That's good, great news. 73% or so on OneDrive, 78 on Teams. That's also a surprise to see that big number, and 5% none of the above. So we get about 10 more seconds. Get your votes in. Vote for me, vote for me. It's like those those shows. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, the polls are closed. All right, we're going to share this polling information with you, but we ended up at 74% Exchange, 70% SharePoint Online, 66% on OneDrive, 78% Microsoft Teams, and 5% none of the above. So, okay. Now we are going to see the fun stuff. This is the part that is really the core piece of the webinar. Jim's going to take over and start showing various parts of what we do and how we do it and the underlying technologies. So again, if you have questions, get them into the questions panel. And if we don't get to them during the webinar, we will answer them later. Go ahead, Jim.
All right, thanks, David. So our deployment process is continuing on here. Just a quick check on it before we get started. So it's already built quite a few sites for us. What it is building is a pretty quickly created copy of our project management office, if you will, in SharePoint Online and Microsoft Teams and Office 365 groups. So this is the live environment that we're sort of building a mock-up of in the background, just to show that you can get started pretty quickly with a whole collection of project sites, templated the way you want, all connected to various hubs. So the way we do this is we represent the status of the project by which hub site it's joined to. A hub site in SharePoint, it's a way to roll up content from a bunch of sites that are connected to the same hub. This one is our active projects hub here. And this is pulling in all of the sites that are joined to that hub and security trimming it for the user that's looking at the page. So if I wasn't a member of all these projects, I wouldn't see them listed here. And we're also pulling in news from those various project sites. In this case, we use news pages for the recordings of our sessions and the notes from the meetings that we have. As David said earlier, we record all of our meetings and we post them to the project portal for the project the meeting was about. These are our active projects. We've got our upcoming projects hub here. It's a different color, has different sites connected to it. We've got some projects that are principally done, but there's remaining time left for just ongoing support and any kind of help that the customers might need for that. And then we've got a hub for projects that have completed and closed, and there is no longer an ongoing relationship there. So for an example, if we were to have the project kickoff meeting today for, let's say, this project here, it's simply a matter of going into the project site and as an owner, changing the site information and associating that project with the active projects hub. And suddenly it feels like everything has moved over to that other site, but really nothing has moved at all. It's just associated with a different hub, and because the web parts are configured to roll up content from all the sites connected to that hub, it feels like everything moved. So that's sort of how we manage collections of projects overall when it comes to SharePoint. A project portal, which we're going to look at one here, connected to a project hub representing the status, the current status of the project. The way we do project management, we create an Office 365 group, which is a collection of the various features in Office 365, all brought together on a common topic. In this case, we use it for projects. It includes a shared mailbox. It includes a shared calendar for all the members of the group, a planner plan, which we'll look at what those kind of look like in a little bit, and of course a SharePoint site. So this also allows us, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that while we're focused on projects today, this is also the structure that we would use for business units. So if you look at your org chart, it might be the departmental level, but it might be subdepartmental. So if you had a human resources department that had payroll, benefits, training, policy group, that kind of thing, then you would then do Office 365 groups for each business unit. So this structure is not nailed to project portals. That's just what we're talking about today. So go ahead, Jim.
Awesome. Thanks, David. So given that the project is represented by an Office 365 group, we get a shared mailbox to go along with that. And any emails that include this email address specific to this project will go out to all the members of the project. And as long as they reply all to those emails, then every other member of the project will be involved in the conversation. That doesn't preclude one-on-one conversations via email. Those still happen. But this is sort of a communication channel for the entire membership of the project. Internal users, us at ShareSquared, and guests. So one of the main points about this is we invite the stakeholders from the customer organization, the stakeholders of the project, to this project portal, and they participate with us. And it gives them early access and an early idea of what it's like to use SharePoint in case they've never done that before. So brief introductory text at the top of the page. We've got a project timeline web part. This is just a visual snapshot of the various milestones or categories of tasks from the project plan. This is generated from Project Online, which we'll be looking at here in a bit. And then clicking on the timeline actually opens the PDF version of the project. And this is also generated from Project Online, updated each week. So this is really just an image in the site assets library and a document in the document library, which is what's next on this particular project portal. All the currently active documents related to the project, some of which are important enough right now that they've been pinned to the top of the library. Our documents are categorized with metadata versus folders. That project schedule that we saw when I clicked on the timeline is really just this document here in the document library. We archive documents in the project as they get a little bit older, still relevant, still useful, but not as important depending on where we're at in the project. And we archive those documents just by changing the value of a field. So if we look at our history of status reports here, we don't want these to show on the home page by default. So we just mark them as archive equals yes when they don't need to show up on the home page, and then they get filtered out. So only the ones that archive equals no are showed on the home page. So just a way to keep all of the documents for the project available, but really provide focus for the currently important ones just on the home page here. And then we got some links here. So these will vary depending on the project and what it is that the project is about. And then we've got our news web part here, which is pulling the news from this particular project portal. All of this news is also included on the hub site. So here's the, if we go into the list of all the news going backwards, we'll see all of that. And all of this is security trimmed. So when a customer logs in here, they only see the news for their project. They only see their project portal listed here. So it really works out well for us. We do other things in the project portal. If we're doing a migration, we'll have a separate library for all the import files related to that. We do occasionally extend one of these project portals to Microsoft Teams and use that. But for the most part, this is what we use to manage the project and all of the meetings and recordings and documents that go along with it. So speaking of meetings, we do all of our meetings in Microsoft Teams. So if we look at over here, an example, the project portal that we looked at has been extended to Microsoft Teams, but not a lot going on there yet. Teams is relatively new for this particular customer, but for this other customer, we've got some channels here. Just another way to collect related information by topic. So for example, design and branding, we've got conversations here, we've got files related to design and branding. We might be using the wiki here. Yeah, so just another way to provide sort of options for how people participate in the project. But that's where our meetings happen. So if we were to go look at a meeting, each meeting has a chat, and in the chat is where the recording shows up. The recording actually gets saved into Microsoft Stream, which is only available to ShareSquared, but when the meeting is complete and the recording has been reviewed and looks good, we copy the recording out to the project portal. And that's how we give access to the recording to our guests that don't have direct access into Microsoft Stream. And throughout all of this, we include this application from Visual SP, the Visual SP help system. This provides a way for users to get help information, tutorials, walkthroughs, cheat sheets, videos related to where they are in the system and what it is they're trying to do and what their permissions are. So for example, here on the home page, I get some help items related to just general SharePoint Online. We get some custom help items that we've added here. So this is just a quick one on how to post content to the homepage. We have some best practices and company policies. And all this is related to sort of a governance add-on pack that we deploy along with Visual SP. So that goes along with all the built-in help content that comes with that particular, with that solution. But it is context aware. So if I jump into a document library and I open the help panel from Visual SP, we'll see that the help items that are available to me in the context of a document library are a bit different. So I get things about how to create documents and how to manage documents. So really good tool for, quick on-the-spot learning.
Jim, can you just show a walkthrough just so people get a sense of what that looks like?
Yeah, so how do I download one of these documents if for whatever reason I want my own copy of it? So this walkthrough pops up, it says to select a file, so I'll just select one, and then it says step 2, click download, and step 3, click the file to open it after you've downloaded it. So pretty cool stuff. Again, all customizable. The existing help items can be customized. You can add your own. We've got, as an example of adding your own, we've got some best practices here that we've put in, like make sure you know who you're sharing a document with.
The other thing too to note is that the help items are security trimmed. So if you don't have permissions to do something, you don't get the help items for it. And this, we showed this today because we theorized that people working from home or remotely can't as easily yell over the cubicle wall to a colleague to get help. And so, but we're a reseller of Visual SP, and we try to put it into every project that we do because we found that traditional training, classroom style training, is expensive. You send people to a class, or someone comes to your location and does the training for some number of people, but not everyone. And typically it follows a particular curriculum that may cover topics for things you don't even have. So a lot of our customers are in the government cloud, and the government cloud lags 6 months behind the commercial cloud in general. So they might see things they don't have yet, or that are just not turned on. Maybe your security group at your organization says, we're not turning that on. We're not going to use OneDrive. We would say you should, but maybe they've made that decision. So you'll have, you'll get training on things you're not going to use. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is most people who go to training, if they don't start to use something immediately, they sort of forget over time. So this, having this pervasive set of videos and walkthroughs and documentation, being able to customize it for your own organization has been just a tremendous help for us to be able to not only train people up front, we do that too, we do virtual trainings and things like that, but to have their learning be ongoing and just at their fingertips. And the results or the side effect of that is that we have less help desk calls. So carry on, Jim.
All right, so that's it for the project portals section of the demo. Now we're going to move into project management. So by that we mean in our scenario, project online, project professional on the desktop. As I said, this timeline image is captured from the project plan in Microsoft Project, and the PDF version of the schedule is generated from there. So we use Project Online. It's not necessarily the best solution for you. It happens to work well for us because we've put the time and effort into making it work well for us over the last 10 years or so. And this is the sort of the new modern interface that Microsoft is working on for Project Online, but the traditional classic Project web app is still here. So our projects are represented not only by a project portal, which is where we interact with the customer and where we post the results of project management, but also in Project Online as a full-on project. And those have a status that pretty much aligns with the project hubs that we looked at earlier. So if it was time to activate that this AFSC modern intranet project, I would just go into the project and change its settings from proposed to active. Now, we haven't done this yet, but our intent is to automate, both the project status field here and the hub site association of the project portal. And we're going to do that by including a custom field that points to the project site URL. Project Server, Project Online have their own approach to how SharePoint is integrated. It's done so with subsites. We don't use that functionality. We could, but it wouldn't work for us because we want each site for the project to be its own site collection, its own Office 365 group. So we're finding ways to make the various pieces of technology work for us, maybe not necessarily in the way originally intended by Microsoft. So again, on a weekly basis, we update the project schedule and push it out to the project portal. We manage project status and health in Project Online, and various other things. So we do, as an example, generate weekly status reports from our notes that we can add to our timesheet here. So on Monday, we have a flow that runs called Generate and Deliver Weekly Status Reports. And it's basically looking at all the data that's in the timesheets for the last week and the current week, and compares that to the list of the projects that are currently active. And for each one of those, it generates the status report. So if I go back to the project portal here and I click on status report, all of this is generated from a template Word document and data that's in Project Online, and then delivered to the project portal again on Monday. So, various ways of bringing the technologies in the stack together. One more example is change requests. So if we do need to make a change request for a project, we've got a custom form here from an organization called Plumsail Forms, and we can fill this out. We can submit it through another flow in Power Automate that basically manages the internal approval process and then eventually the stakeholder approval process, all via email. So just another example of bringing various pieces of the technology stack together to make our jobs a bit easier, to reduce some of the friction. So that's sort of a quick high-level rundown of how we do project management using Project Online, and for automation a little bit of Power Automate and flows that are in there. Next up is our section on productivity, and we're going to look at a few apps here and actually hand it off to David for some of the demos. But we'll start with Teams. So we did look at this a little bit earlier. We've got a team for some of our project portal. So it's really up to the customer and how much they want to get their hands on Microsoft Teams early, before maybe they're not ready to deploy it to their entire organization, but they want to see what it's like to use Microsoft Teams for something real. While we're making progress on the project, we can extend the project portal to Microsoft Teams and create channels and start to look at how Microsoft Teams can bring things to the table. So
Jim, let me back up just a little bit, because from the poll, most people are using Teams, and so you probably know some of this, but I'll give my view of Teams kind of from a high level, and that is, it is first and foremost, it's a replacement for Skype. So if you're still using Skype, you need to move off of it, because Microsoft's being very aggressive with decommissioning Skype and bringing Teams in. But the difference is that in Skype, if you used it for chat and calls, those lived in isolation in the Skype application. and then there was in your conversations in Outlook, that information would show up there, but it was not contextual. So what Teams does, not only is it the telephony part, but it also gives you context for any IM chat that you're doing with your colleagues or customers and things like that, and also for the calls themselves, so that they're not living out of context with no topic. So that takes a lot to kind of understand Teams. And Jim was way out in front of me, and I said, I just don't really get it. But it's all of those different things, from the communications to the files, to hosting tabs of applications, which Jim was starting to show, and things like that. But it's sort of a user experience that sits on top of access to the files and the calls, recordings, and all those kinds of things. Not just a replacement for Skype, but I say first and foremost because that's one of the things that you've got to address probably sooner than the rest. You may not be ready to adopt Teams, but you probably do need to get off of Skype. And so go ahead, Jim. I just wanted to give that context.
Yeah, thanks, David. So any Office 365 group can be extended to Microsoft Teams, and then you can configure that interface to support the work of the team. Switching over a little bit to Planner, one of the things that you can do in Microsoft Teams is add a Planner plan, and just have it show up right in the context of Microsoft Teams. So our project planning, the things that we looked at about the project portals associated to the hub, the project status and project online. We also have a card on a planner plan that represents each project. This one is high-level project planning. So going back to our example, if we were having the project kickoff and it was time to activate this project, we just drag it over into the active projects bucket. Pretty simple to do. We also use Planner for weekly planning. So if we look at the weekly planning channel, we have a Planner tab here, and this just has a list of all the things that we're doing on Monday. We do our Scrum call on Tuesday. We have the projects that are in support represented here, where we can keep a checklist of all the things that we need to do. This is a really great tool. We've found some really good uses for it. It started with putting together an application for David to manage our RFP process. And with that, David, I'm ready to switch over to you, unless you want me to pull it up.
Why don't you just pull it up, and then I'll speak to it. So the story goes that we do a lot of RFPs. We respond to these requests for proposals. I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of work with government entities, and that's how they procure a lot of their projects. And so we were managing the effort, from receiving and vetting an RFP all the way through, hopefully, getting an award and working through contracts in email, essentially. So Jim, if you'll go all the way to the left for a second, and then I'll just speak to the different buckets. So when we get something new, or if it's a rebid, if it went out and it's going to go back out, we put it in that. That's called a bucket. That's a grouping. It could be by status. We're going to show you another Planner board, but we love Planner. It's very easy to do. I sat down with Jim and said, we need an application to manage RFPs. What would you use? He said, Planner. We did this together in about 45 minutes, and then we've continued to use it. The different buckets represent the state. So we had QA review, proposal. So when we submit QA, we move the card or that task. Each one of these represents a task to the next bucket. And if you'll go into one of them, Jim, anyone is probably fine. They should be pretty representative. So this is an RFP from the city of Roseville. It's a EDRMS, so that's electronic document and records management system. So it's records management. We don't have a lot in the notes, but we set the start date kind of when we get started on it. We keep bumping that up as things change. This one's obviously in progress. It's in the QA bucket. So we are still waiting to do QA. You can see in the checklist down below, the deadline is the 14th. We're supposed to get it back to the 21st. And so what we do is we have the checklist, which is almost always the same, and then we bump the due date to a little before the next item on the checklist, and we just keep working the process. And then as we pass through different stages with the RFP, we move it along to the different buckets. So we would move, from here to QA review to proposal. Hopefully we get to notice to proceed. We do pretty well with these, but this is just an example of what you can do with Planner. Now, Planner has nothing to do with RFPs, but that's one thing we used it for. Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Go to the software purchase and maintenance. We resell a bunch of different products. WAN taxonomies, bind tuning is user experience web parts and premium themes for Office 365, Visual SP, we showed you that earlier. Gimel is a records management product and so forth. And so we have to manage the renewal. So each of these tasks, in this case, in the other case, they were each an RFP. In this case, they're each a product that has this particular renewal date. And you can see, if you want to go into one of those, Jim, very simple cards here. Go ahead and click into one. Well, so we've got the contact, we've got a task list, we've got the dates that are coming up. So the April 2nd is when we'll reach out next and so forth. And so this is just used to manage our product renewals. And you can use Planner for really anything. You just have to kind of come up with a simple design and you go from there. Anything else about Planner, Jim? Oh, actually, go show the charts and schedule and that material up there.
Which is a good one for charts? This one?
I don't know.
Right.
We're gonna find out.
So these are some of the automatic reporting that you can get in Planner. Let's go look at the RFP response group.
So, and I should say that on the software purchase, the buckets, those stage gates are quarters. So what quarter, calendar quarter when the renewal comes in, and then the RFP obviously is organized around the stage of the RFP. So different buckets.
So we've got just a chart about the status, priorities, who's assigned to different things. There's a schedule view. When you've got a lot of data on there, you've got to kind of drill in to see, what those different dates are. But this represents a lot of work for whoever's managing this process. I guess that's you right now, David. That's amazing.
Well, Teresa's doing a lot of it as well. But yeah, but that's it's pretty quick and easy, to be honest. We'll try to tell you the good and the bad of it. I mean, the thing that is not great is that there's not a lot of governance. So anybody who's a member of the group, so we have an RFP response group, a software purchase and maintenance group, anyone who's a member can change those tasks, can check off checklist items. So you have to be very careful about that. We expect that there will be more governance. Early on, there were no APIs, but there are APIs now, and we're using some of them to set up tasks in Planner. Jim has one where he does it from Teams when we want to create a new project portal. So these, I would say this is across the board, not so much Office 365, which I think is incredibly mature, but Planner and Teams just continue to get better, and they're not mature, but there are some things, like I mentioned with Planner, that we'd like to see happen. In let's say this year would be great to have governance and APIs and things like that. So do you want to talk about this one, Jim?
Yeah, so this is just a quick little power app that we put together so that someone like David, who doesn't have permission to create new project sites and might not do it correctly, can put in a request for a new project portal. So he just comes here and he fills out this form, hits submit, and the data that's collected from David flows into a new card on the Planner plan for project planning, assigned to the individual that creates project portals, along with all the information that he needs to go ahead and create the project portal. And then that card becomes it continues to represent the project throughout its entire life cycle. New projects, when it gets activated, it gets moved over here. You'll notice that each one of these that is complete has a link to the project portal. So if I click that, it takes me right where I need to go. This one's active, so I'm in the context of the active projects hub. So it all just kind of comes together pretty cleanly, and we can do a lot more. We can focus on many, many projects at the same time and not get lost in all the details, because we don't have to keep all of that information in our head. We know that it's in a system that we trust, and we know how to keep it up to date. And we're pretty sure other people participating in those processes do it the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that when dates are missed, you get an email. I mean, there's a lot of sort of closing of the loop, right? So there's communications coming from Planner and things like that to alert you that you've got tasks that are past due and things like that. Jim mentioned, Jim, I'm going to loop back because I think you skipped something unless I wasn't paying attention. Jim mentioned Power Apps, and we wanted to show you an application that we use to process change orders. And Power Apps is a lightweight kind of a forms technology. Jim might say it a different way. That's how I see it. And then Automate, which used to be called Flow, Microsoft Flow, is a workflow component. And so we just wanted to share with you in the area of productivity, just one example. We're using these applications, these technologies in lots of places. We've implemented them for customers, but just think of it as forms and workflow as kind of the bucket it lives in. But in particular, this one is related to, the one Jim's going to show is related to project management. So do you want to share that one, Jim?
Yeah, so I did touch on it briefly earlier, but we can dig into the details now. So if it is necessary to create a new change request for a project, we simply fill out this form. We select the project from our list of projects, select who the customer stakeholder is that needs to receive and finally approve the change order. We do a couple different types of projects, time and materials or fixed price. Usually our hourly rate is defaulted. Fill in the details about the change request, add whatever labor and materials that are required to the change request, and then submit it. When it gets submitted, it goes through this flow here, this flow in Power Automate called PCRMS, Project Change Request Management System approval. So when it's updated, if it's a brand new one, we want to manually, or not manually, we want to automatically set the title and the change order number. Once that's done, then if the person submitting the change request has said that it's ready for internal review, then the approval gets sent to whoever the current approver is for that particular project, internal approver. So for the Morguard project, that's David. And then we check to see if that's been approved yet internally. And once it has, once David makes his changes to the change request as needed and clicks approve, then it gets sent on as an email only to the stakeholder. So whoever we put in that stakeholder box, they get an email that has all the data from the change request in an HTML email message, along with a button to either approve or reject. And when they do that, if they approve, then we set the status of the change order to approved, and we notify both David and myself, the submitter of the change order, that it was approved. Or if it's rejected, then we set its status to rejected and know that it's maybe needs to go back through the process again. But this is something that used to be done over various emails and phone calls and documents back and forth, and now it's all pretty straightforward and automated for us.
Again, just something that, because of the way it's automated and done with the technology, is a lot easier to do, and particularly when you have now a distributed workforce, you can't just run down the hall and get a signature anymore. We know who approved it because of who they're signed in as and things like that, and that there's an audit trail for that. So that's just an example. Obviously, you can build anything, almost anything, with Power Apps and Flow now, but that's in the area of project management, that's something we've done. Jim, there's a couple things on the list still to show, but I'm wondering if you want to go over and show the portal creation stuff and the results of what you kicked off earlier.
Cool.
How's it going? Is it done?
It looks like it's done, yeah. So I started it at 10:07 and it finished at 10:36. So about a half an hour we created quite a few sites. So let's just go look at that environment here. This is just a demo environment that I got from Microsoft, built it yesterday, made very few changes to it. But now after that deployment, we've got all of these sites here. Let me zoom in a bit. So again, this is just a made up copy without any actual content of our current project management office. So let's just jump into one of these hub sites. Can I find one? So let's go to the Active Projects Hub. And there is some caching that goes on in SharePoint Online. So though we have set the site logos for these sites and created the home pages and all that kind of stuff, it sometimes takes a while for every piece of the platform to realize that you've made a change. The top navigation will eventually flow in the connection from one project hub to another. I can manually force it just by pretending to make a change. But we've got all these sites created and customized with their web parts set up and ready to run our projects. Now this is a made up scenario, just to sort of flex our skill set a little bit. Looks like that's an error. But just to give you an idea that, you know, it is possible to automate the creation of your entire set of sites in SharePoint, whether they're project portals like this, or your, you know, your department, division, section, subsection based sites. So
can you show the portal creation workbook? So this is what we're using here is a product that we developed, which, you know, comes really, there's an Excel workbook where we define this, what the portal is going to look like. And again, as Jim said, it could be project sites, as it is in this example, or it could be an entire intranet with a team site for each business unit, something like that, because it's driven by a spreadsheet. So, and then there's a utility that goes with this. So this is our technology. To be clear, this isn't Microsoft, and you could do something like this with PowerShell. It would take a while. You can create these sites by hand, but we've been doing this for so long that's a lot of work. And as you saw, Jim did it in an hour. He sort of recreated our whole project portal. So just don't get too technical, Jim. If you could just kind of show just a little bit of highlights of this, that'd be great. Yeah. And then we've got about 8 minutes left.
Yeah. So each of the check boxes that we saw, and I'm going to get an error because I've got the workbook open, but each of the check boxes that we saw on the deploy dialog is represented by one of these tabs in the workbook. So this tab contains an Excel table. They all contain an Excel table, and each row on this tab represents a site and all of the settings to go along with it: the managed path, the address of the site, the logo to use, the theme to apply, which hub site to connect it to, unless it is a hub site, and all the various settings that we could, you know, set manually in the browser as we're creating the site or after. But we've represented all those settings here in this workbook. We can add or remove links from the quick launch. So in all of our project portals, we've suppressed the notebook link that comes by default, the pages and site contents. We can adjust the top nav. So here's each of the project hubs has a link in its top nav to the other project hubs. We can activate features. So any site that doesn't have the word projects in the name gets these two features activated. We deploy some apps. So there's our project timeline web part. There's the Visual SP application. That one's going to all the sites, including the hubs, and lots of other stuff here. So custom actions, permissions, terms and term sets, create lists and libraries, adjust their permissions, associate content types, just a lot of stuff that we can do here. I skipped a lot of that for our demo today, and really just focused on the structure and the features and the apps, and then the configuration of the various web parts on the homepage. So each row in this table represents a single web part. So if we go to the Active Projects Hub on the home page, we should have a Sites Web part in the first section in the first column of that section. And sure enough, if we go to the Active Projects Hub, there's our Sites Web part. And the properties for it are all defined in the workbook as well. So which sites to show, how many to show, and all the other settings. Even the welcome message on all of the project portals and the text. So all of this was built out in a half an hour. Looks like I got a little.
The typical process when we work with a customer to build their intranet is we take their organizational chart and decide to talk to them about what represents a business unit, because each business unit's going to get a team site. And so we kind of transform the information from the org chart to that workbook. We call it the portal creation workbook, and then we run from there. Jim, we won't have time to go into this because we got to wrap up, but that's the process. We wanted to share with you what's possible, with these project portals and also intranets. Same principles apply there. Let's jump back to the presentation. We missed a couple things. We'll have to do another run at this, or if you have questions, we were going to show Microsoft To Do and My Analytics. And To Do is for personal task management. So whereas Planner is collaborating on a project or something like an RFP response, To Do is personal. You can share to-do lists, but I use it every day. That's how I manage everything. And one of the beautiful things about it is if you get an email, you can flag it and it automatically shows up in To Do. Your Planner tasks show up there, your tasks that you create directly there for yourself and so forth. So we're not going to show that today, but if you have questions about it or you want to explore it, you can look for Microsoft To Do online and start using it. And it's very intuitive. There's not too much to it. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And this is just a placeholder, so when you get the deck, you'll see that this is what we built. It's like a reminder. And then we're going to go ahead and do the last poll. And that is, what do you see as next steps? Just kind of get a sense of where everyone's at. Give that a moment. So people will jump in if you're still interested in playing with this one. And then we'll give it about 10 seconds, and then we're going to close out the presentation. So far, everyone is on the plan and design a solution. Anyone else want to vote? All right, we're seeing some voting happening. We'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, last chance. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. I'm going to share the poll. Jim, I learned something new. Let's see if this works. That's the poll results. We'll share these with you in the presentation that we share within a few days here. Okay, and that should take us out. Go to the next slide, please. So we started a webinar series on records management, electronic document and records management systems. We did the first webinar a couple weeks ago. There's 3 more coming up. In the deck, you'll have the registration links. You'll probably get an email, unless you've unsubscribed, that has them as well. We'd love to have you join us. We're going to include the recording of the first one in case you missed it, so you can catch up. And then there's a couple of links at the bottom of the slide. Again, you'll be able to click on them in the PDF. There were things about Microsoft Teams, and they've had this explosive boom with people working from home and things, hitting 44 million daily active users. So I thought that article was kind of interesting and topical for our presentation today. Next slide, please. Okay, so what we covered: why go remote, what ShareSquared does, where this approach has worked. We talked about Office 365 project portals, project online, We looked at some productivity, or I'm sorry, project management. We looked at Project Online. We looked at some productivity applications in Planner and Teams, and I think we covered a lot of ground in an hour. I hope this was useful to you. Again, if you have questions, my contact information is there. You can reach out to me, and I will do my best to get back to you with answers to questions, or if you'd like a demonstration of your own or for a colleague, absolutely reach out. If you're interested in our portal creation product that you saw today or Visual SP, reach out to us. We can help with any of those things. We thank you for joining. We know that you're busy and you got a lot going on, and we really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, or today rather, and we hope you'll join the next webinar. Thank you very much.